Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey, everybody. I am so delighted to introduce you to my guest today, Dr. Luis Velasquez. Luis is an entrepreneur and fitness enthusiast who helps leaders better understand what their organizations need to communicate in order to be successful. A former scientist, his academic career was interrupted by a brain tumor that he survived, not once, but 3 times. He is currently writing a book, Beyond the Fear, an autobiographical account and research-based guide for overcoming fear, finding strength, undergoing change, finding passion, and building relationships. In addition, he also facilitates the Interpersonal Dynamics class at the Stanford University Graduate School of Business and is a writer for the Harvard Business Review Ascend publication. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Luis Velasquez.
Hey, Tammy, how are you today?
Oh, doing great and really excited to have you here. So, this is a podcast about transitions. And Luis, you've had a number of different transitions in your life, in your career, professionally. And I'm hoping you can sort of walk us through a little bit some of the twists and turns that you've taken and some of the choices you've made. Just share with us some of the things that you've done and what propelled you to make some of the changes that you made over time.
So I was born in Guatemala, Central America, son of a very couple of very poor people. So I grew up in poverty at a time where there was a lot of civil unrest because we have a civil war at the moment of the time. And what I realized is that to me, that was normal.
Yeah.
My sense of normality just, this is the way we live. Okay, so let me go to school and see who disappeared this weekend. Let's go next month. Let's see who died this past weekend. Who was kidnapped this weekend. We never had that, what are we going to have for dinner? But rather, are we going to have dinner tonight? And that was, for me, normal. I didn't know any better. A few years later, the war ended and the United States set up a scholarship fund. And the whole idea was to bring students or bring young people from those areas and, teach them English and give them a university education. And then they can go back and become beacons of change or United States advocates, if you want to call it like that. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to be chosen, came to the States. But yes, I learned English and I did an Associate of Science degree. But what was much, much more transformational to me was the options that I saw. Not necessarily the options that were open, but rather what I could be able to achieve.
Ooh, so you're saying, so it wasn't just what you saw around you in terms of the options, in terms of educational opportunities and things, but that you saw something within yourself that you thought you could achieve?
Yeah, you can say that as again, my life before coming to the States was very simple.
How old were you when you came over here?
I was 17.
Okay.
And when I came here, I realized, anybody that could come here could go to school. Anybody could drive a car and have a house. If you think about the American dream, it's like, wow, all of the things that I could get. To me, it was more about all the things that I could have and the options that I could potentially be able to attain if I work hard or whatever. And so that was a transformational situation for me, is to realize that I have potential. So went back home. I committed to be back for 3 years to fulfill my commitment to the scholarship fund. After the third year, I realized, okay, I have unfinished business. I saw what I could become, so I'm gonna figure out a way to go back or to finish what I started. So I went to Florida A&M University.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you know anything about Florida University, it's a traditional African American institution.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
And when I came, I didn't know that it was an African American institution. I just, the scholarship that I got was from the Department of Education of Florida, and I had to apply to a school in Florida. And if I got accepted, then I would come. So I go there, and I wasn't expecting to be in a African American institution. It was different.
Sure.
And completely out of my comfort zone. Let's put it
Yeah.
away. But I realized that I fit right in. I was different, but it was a great place to be. I mean, I met some really good friends.
I'm curious though. So you said initially it felt very different. So in your previous time in the US, where had you been and what kind of environment were you in at that time?
I was in a community college in California.
Okay.
And there was a melting pot. California is a melting pot.
But it wasn't exclusively a particular group of people.
Yeah. Florida A&M University at the time, it was 95% African American. So I finished my bachelor's from there, and I started, taking some science classes, and I love science. Professor at that university asked me if I could work in his lab doing some, research. What he meant is dishwashing.
Oh, really?
So I was dishwashing. I was
test tubes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was promoted rather quickly to media making because I keep breaking the dishes.
Now there's a way to get a promotion, right?
But having said that, I realized that I really loved science. So I came here originally because I wanted to be a farmer, and so I wanted to get an engineering degree on agricultural sciences.
Really?
And that's why I went to Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University for the purpose of getting an agricultural science.
So you came to the U.S. on scholarship to study agricultural science.
Yeah.
Discovered that you loved other sciences. And I'm just curious, was your intention when you came here to get that bachelor's degree, did you intend to try to find a way to stay in the U.S., or were you intending to get that agricultural knowledge and go back home with that? Or,
as I said, my dream was to become a farmer, and my goal was to finish my school and then go back or get a job elsewhere.
Okay, but to be a farmer.
Yeah, to be a farmer. But once I came here, I realized that what I really like is science. I enjoy chemistry. I took organic chemistry 1 and 2 at the same time. And I really enjoyed science. So I decided to focus on. I took an assistantship with this professor, and he asked me if I would stay and do a master's on his lab. And I say, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And everything started from there. So when I finished my master's, I got recruited to do a PhD in several universities, and I ended up in Michigan State University. I graduated from Michigan State University, and they took me in right away, and with a position of visiting assistant professor of fungal genetics.
Oh, wow.
So I started work with fungi at the molecular level. At the molecular level, so all work was DNA and RNA and stuff like that.
So molecular fungi, like teeny weeny little mushrooms?
You wouldn't even see the mushrooms. I'm talking about, little tiny little DNA, splicing the DNA and doing all sorts of different interesting things with them. In the process, I got married. In the process, I got my wife and I built a house. And when I got the assistantship, the professorship, I thought, okay, I'm pretty much done. All I need to do is publish a few papers and get a tenure track position, and I'm done. And then,
life, right?
Yep. And then I got diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Wow.
So when I came back from the operation and the brain surgery and all that fun stuff, I couldn't even recognize my own mother. And
really?
And the doctor told me that I needed to accept my new reality. And my new reality probably was that I wouldn't be able to be a professor anymore. And my world pretty much ended. I took a postdoc at Rice University, thinking that perhaps if I go to Rice, if I start a new place, I probably will be able to make it. And it was the most embarrassing thing that I ever done.
Really?
I was recommended pretty highly. My professor wrote an incredible letter for me, and I couldn't deliver. It was embarrassing.
Because of your cognitive functioning or your intellectual functioning?
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
Having said that, it has recovered quite considerably since then. But at that time, it was horrible.
Yeah.
So I decided, I cannot do this anymore. And then I survived the tumor, but neither my professional dreams or my marriage did, because my wife ended up leaving as well. So I was, imagine you go to the school for so many years, you get your PhD, and then all of a sudden you have nothing to, you have the paper, but you cannot, you cannot do anything with it.
Right.
So I started, thinking about, what direction I was going to take in my life. And I considered many things, including, real estate and car selling, or reader at Walmart, or, taco truck, whatever.
Right.
Figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
And again, I have options.
Right.
My wife used to, she graduated from Michigan State with a master's in human resources.
Uh-huh.
And I remember many times we used to talk about, her work and the things that she used to do. And I thought to myself, oh, I can do that. I can do that. So I started reading about, human resources and people management and stuff like that. And I decided to start marketing myself as a human resources. And then I had a break. A friend of mine, told me, hey, Luis, we can have a job for you. But there is a caveat, that is in Saudi Arabia. Do you want to do it? Do you want to take it? And at that time, we were in the middle of the World War. So there were a lot of bombings, and Westerners were being bombed, and they were fleeing. And here I am, I'm going to go and do this. And no experience, nothing whatsoever, but I had no choice. So I went to do it, and actually did pretty well in that.
So you got a role in human resources for a company in Saudi Arabia?
Yes. Actually, I got a role with a consulting company in the US doing business in Saudi Arabia.
Aha.
So I went there as a consultant. And the person that gave me the role really took a big chance on me. And I took this chance, and it actually worked out really well. I started doing some consulting. And then I remember one time I was in my office in Saudi Arabia, when the HR VP came into my office and asked me if I could help him with a PowerPoint presentation. So I said, sure. And I went to his office, and then he started showing me. And then all of a sudden I started coaching him, but I didn't realize that I was coaching him. To me, it was, so what about this? What about that? And then he started coming back. And they asked me to help somebody else. The company that I was working for, they were expanding. So I moved from Saudi Arabia. I went to Bahrain. I went to Dubai. I did some work in Jordan and Iraq and Kuwait.
Wow.
Egypt and all over Africa. And I loved it. And then I moved back in 2007. I realized that, I had all this experience, but I nothing to show in terms of educational backgrounds. I went back to school and got an MBA on leadership development. And I said, okay, so I'm done. Almost going back to the same place. By the way, I'm a runner. I like to run. And in 2012, I just finished running 100 miles. And I was in the best shape of my life. And I went to see a doctor for my brain, and then the doctor realized that the brain tumor was coming back.
Oh.
And the funny thing is that this was the first time I was seeing this particular doctor, and he saw the MRI before he came to see me. When he came in, he asked me, where is the patient? And I said to him, I am the patient. And he goes, that's not possible, because the MRI that I saw is of a person that I was expecting to have some major neurological problems.
Oh.
You don't have any. What you been doing?
Yeah.
And then I said, I've been running. I've been exercising. And he said, well, oh my gosh, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because I mean, this is not normal. But having said that, you have a ticking bomb in your head.
Wow.
You need to deal with it. So I was like, oh my gosh, not again. But it actually went out really easy this time around. And
Really?
I got in the hospital. I got out of there in about 5 days. And I took some time off. In the process, the company decided that I couldn't keep me anymore because they didn't want to. It was about timing. You know, the economy was bad, so I was let go. So what am I going to do? I started looking for a new job, and everywhere I went, A, they're not hiring, or B, they were not hiring me. And the reason why they're not hiring me because I didn't have enough experience on the job, you know, and or because I was overqualified, and I definitely couldn't apply for life sciences work. And then one time I was sitting in an interview, and the person that was interviewing me told me that they're probably not going to hire me because I wouldn't fit in that environment. And he said, and the reason why I'm telling you this is because I am leaving the company too.
Oh.
Yeah, the interviewer.
That's amazing.
Would you be, and like he said, I need someone to help me transition out. Will you help me?
So you're the person who was interviewing you wanted you to coach him.
It was my first coaching client. And I am like, oh yeah. And I made the connection there. I said, okay, so now I'm going to start looking for clients instead of a job. Yeah, so that's how I started. And then I've been coaching for my own since 2013. And I've been loving it. You know, I'm a coach for Google, I coach for Twitter, Monsanto, coach for a couple of other unicorns here in Silicon Valley. I do some work at Stanford University. I facilitate a class called Interpersonal Dynamics, and it's all about helping people how to build relationships, be resilient.
Well, the story you're telling here sounds like it's all about resilience. I think about where you started in Guatemala and how you came over here not once, but twice and found your way through to a PhD program and had this tumor, lost some of your mental capacities, lost your marriage, somehow found your way into a whole nother profession, and kind of, it sounds like at that point you were lost for a little while, and then you found your way. A friend gave you a break, and you found your way into some work that sounds like you were over in the Middle East and Africa for a period of many years. Is that right? Many years?
Yeah.
And then you moved back here in 2007 and went to grad school and got the MBA. And lo and behold, you find you have another brain tumor. And again, your life, I don't mean to make you sound like a victim because you don't behave like one, but then again, you get cancer, and again, you're kind of dumped again. How do I say that more delicately? I guess I didn't. But it does seem like no one would blame you if you were bitter. And I've known you for a while now, and there doesn't seem to be a bitter bone in your body. You're a very positive, forward-thinking person. So what has kept you going these last several years?
People ask me that again and again. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I decided to start looking into it, how I live and what are the things that I do that made me come back the way you describe it. I don't see it, to tell you the truth, I don't see this as something incredible. This is my normal. This is how I live. Having said that, I realized that there is something that I do that perhaps is different from other. And you said, you get dump again, and then you're positive. And I think that one of the biggest components on that is that I realize what I can control and what I cannot control.
Uh-huh.
I call it, a gravity problem and a situational problem. The gravity problem is the tumor. I cannot control cabinet.
Right.
The gravity problem is the fact that I was thrown away from my jobs. I cannot control that.
Right.
And getting angry at it and getting upset about it, it will not add any value to the stress that I'm already under.
Right.
But what I could control is how I'm going to react to those things. When I talk to my clients, I say, is this a gravity problem or is this a situational problem? The gravity problem is the things that you cannot control. Now, the situational problem is how you're going to deal with the things that you cannot control. The only thing that I can do is to react to them accordingly to the best way possible. And the best way that works for me is being positive and thinking about what is the outcome and how can I deal with this from a positive perspective. In this particular class that I teach at Stanford is called Interpersonal Dynamics.
Yeah.
And it's about, your attitude, and it's about how people perceive you.
Right.
And the perception that most people have of me is that I am an overly positive person.
That you're overly positive.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And the reality is that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. And some people might be suspicious to the way I look at things so positively.
I see. Yeah.
But having said that, I think that for me, it works.
Yeah.
For me, I am going to do this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I love the way you take full ownership of whatever's happened in your life. And yet you're very clear about, what a gravity problem is, what a situational problem is, and, really taking a good look at things that are within your control and are outside of your control. And so when confronted with something very, very serious, even life-threatening, you still approach it with a kind of resolve, it sounds like, where you say, I'm going to do what I can to fight this.
Yeah. And going back to what you said, a resolve, I consider myself a resilient individual.
Yeah.
And resilience to me is about having that resolve, is having that commitment and persistence. So if you think about this, like when you're committed, you're going to persist. Persistence, however, has two components.
Yeah.
And one of them is grit, understanding that it is painful. It might be painful. It might not be comfortable.
Right.
But you're going to do it anyway.
Right.
And the other component of persistence is having a passion and a positive outlook. I know I'm going to get better. And so when you have those three components, that's the way I see it. And it has worked for me tremendously. And for the people that I coach too, it's having a framework of what are you going to do and how are you going to get it done. It's invaluable.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to be a little cynical for just a moment, a little bit, only because I want to sort of dig a little deeper here for a moment and ask you. So, you can say all of that now that you're, and maybe I'm making an assumption that here you are today, 2019, you have a thriving executive coaching practice. You're teaching at Stanford. You're now published author for Harvard Business Review Ascend. You have a lot of really great things happening. And I know that you've remarried and you have a family. So I know there's a lot of really good things. So when you look back on these things that have happened, when you're in the moment, is that how you felt about some of those situations at the time, that you looked at them that way? Or is that how you've kind of incorporated the way you've coped with them over time? Because for some people, they would not have the resilience to keep going the way you've kept going, I would think. You know what I'm saying? That, is it just hindsight being 2020? Or can you say that this is how you've always looked at things? And I'm thinking about how you talked about, growing up in Guatemala and saying, look, this was all I knew. And so even when I had a brain tumor, even when, my marriage fell apart, all I knew was I had to deal with what was right in front of me right then and there.
You got it right there.
Okay.
It's living in the moment.
Yeah.
When I think about this, when I think about my life today,
Yeah.
I have no idea it was going to be work out the way it worked out now.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I am happy I'm doing all of these things. But going to that low points in my life, I had no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that I ask people is like, what can you do today? So 4 years from now, you can say that this crisis that you're going through is the best thing that happened to you in your life.
Mm.
So sometimes, like as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm an endurance athlete. I love to run, and
yeah,
I've run over 100 marathons. I've done
100 marathons. Whew.
I have done several 100-mile races. And I've seen myself a couple of times, let's say a mile 70, and you think it's in the middle of the night. I mean, there is nothing you can do about it. And you say, I can no longer go. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down. I'm done.
Yeah.
But then you realize that to even get out of there, you just have to keep going. It's not like somebody's going to come and rescue you. Just like, okay, you're done, but you still have to get yourself out of, to the next aid station at least. So having said that, nobody knows exactly how life is going to come. 10 years from now, you can have a direction, but the reality is that we live day to day.
Yeah.
And what we do today is going to shape what we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is that if I am a mile 70 and I say I cannot do, that's it, I'm done. I still have to carry my butt all the way to the aid station. And when I am at the aid station, it's like, you know what? I can make it to the next aid station.
Yeah.
And I can make it to the next aid station.
Yeah.
Yeah. To your point, like, oh, you have done this, you have done that. It's easier to look back. And I think that's what you're saying. That's what you're alluding to. Yes, it is easier to look back. But at the same time, I also realize that, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I live year to year. I still have to go to check out my brain every year.
Yeah.
And I live 1 year at a time, because I don't know what's happening in my head until the day that I go and check, the brain tumor.
Yeah.
But I am not going to allow my death to rule the way I live.
Right. So what do you allow to rule the way you live? What are the passions that propel you forward? And tell us a little bit about what you're working on these days.
I met my wife, the one that is my wife now, running. Then we have children.
Mm.
And those children have become my passion for living.
Uh-huh.
I want to grow 2 kids that are kind, strong, and confident human beings. So that drives me to do everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
Is I want to inspire and help them and adapt and bloom where they're planted. And I translate that to the people that I coach. So you said, what makes you get up in the morning? I said, I just want to help people adapt and thrive.
One thing that we talked about in a previous conversation was I found it very compelling. You said that adapting is not changing. And I wanted you to expand on that a little bit, because I think that plays a role in how you've lived your life. I think it plays a role in how you operate as a coach, because a lot of what we do as coaches is help people adapt, and we help people work their way through change. And some people would say that one way to work through change is to adapt. So when you say adapting is not changing, what do you mean by that?
So from a biological standpoint of view,
Yes.
after all, I'm a scientist, and I'm
That's
still
right.
think about like a scientist. And I realize that every single species in this earth is here today because has made adaptations in the way they live or in the way they respond to whatever changes are happening in their environment.
Mm-hmm.
We ourselves are here today because we adapted over time. And the two biggest adaptations that humans had that were able to do and resulted in us becoming the dominant species on Earth is our ability to run and our ability to sweat. Those two adaptations by themselves made us who we are today. When we're running, we don't run distance. So we can actually be able to move from one place to the other, run our prey to death. And the ability to sweat. So because we could run long distance, we can actually cool down. So now if you think about this, as humans, as the species that we are today, we've been doing this for millions of years, adapting. Now, adapting over a long period of time results in change. But so change is the way I see it is a multiplier of the small changes that we make toward that big change that you expect to do.
Right. Okay.
And so when you say, oh, I have to change, that sounds and is hard to assimilate. Because sometimes those changes result in changing the way we are from the perspective of identity. But if you want to adapt, you don't have to change. You work with what you already have, with the conditions that you already have, and make a little bit, like call it tiny little change that will eventually allow you to thrive and become resistant, and most importantly, conquer whatever you're dealing with.
Right. I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So when people say I need to change, that sounds too radical. But I say I need to adapt is so much easier to it's more palatable and it's much easier to do.
Right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And a lot of the conversations I've been having with people over time around the kinds of transitions that they've made, they all pretty much say the same thing. Nothing really happens overnight, and nothing really happens in a straight line. So it's not an all or nothing thing. It's not like I have to change, I have to be somebody else tomorrow, So yeah, I can see where the process of adapting are really small adjustments you might make, but that doesn't necessarily amount to a change, something very, very different.
Exactly. And I am very fond of what us coaches, we call the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
Because a difficult transition or a difficult problem doesn't have to have a complex solution. You need to figure out what is the lowest, the change or the small change that you can do with the lowest amount of effort. Yeah. Because those are the easiest to do.
And is that all, though? Is it just because it's the easiest thing to do, or because sometimes you can learn from that and then maybe make a few more adjustments along the way, rather than just doing something radical and not really knowing what really worked?
So that leads me to the other conversation that we had is about enduring.
Right.
And sometimes I think that you mentioned about being in a job that you hate,
Yes.
or having a boss that is horrible, or being in a relationship that is horrible. Obviously, there is a need to radical change there, right? But sometimes you are embedded on it. You cannot just drop things and leave because you can't, right?
Right.
But so then you start making the changes to adapt to that, but not to stay there forever.
Right.
But rather, it's like, okay, so now 5 years from now, or 2 years from now, 6 months from now, I'm gonna move from this job.
Right.
So what are you gonna do today? So 6 years, 6 months from now, you actually make that big leap. But right now, you see what I'm saying? It's like, okay, so you can do something today that will alleviate the situation emotionally for you or physically for you, but not necessarily to stay there for indefinite time, but rather, okay, what can I do today to alleviate this situation for now, but knowing where I need to go next.
Right. It all fits, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So, Luis, if people want to learn more about your work and what you're doing, how can they find you?
There are a couple of places where you can find me. You can go to LinkedIn and find Luis Velasquez. I have a blog, which is part of, I call it my book blog. So I'm writing a book, and I write stuff there about, being resilient, and building relationships, and becoming stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So the website is www.beyondthefear.com.
Beyondthefear.com.
Yeah.
Nice.
So or you can look at my coaching website is velascoaching.com.
All right.
And I would love to hear from anybody and help them adapt and thrive.
All right. Adapt
Bloom where they're planted.
So we will have all of those links and resources in the show notes. Luis, thank you so much for sharing your story and all the twists and turns. And my wish is that all the next checkups show nothing in that brain other than lots more positive activity.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this opportunity. I mean, I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Luis Velasquez. It was so incredible to speak with him and learn about his personal challenges and professional transitions. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? Is there something you'll put into action that you'll benefit from for years to come? Share what resonated with you in the show notes at workfromtheinsideout.com. Look for episode 035. That's also where you'll find all the links and resources from today's podcast. Are you thinking about what's next for you? Are you ready to consider your options or begin a process of exploration to get the clarity, energy, and plans you need to move forward? I am piloting a small group for 4 to 6 professional women who are curious, willing, and ready to engage in a 3-month program that offers the information, inspiration, and support you need to get where you are going next. Cohorts are beginning in mid-September 2019. By the completion of the group, you will be refreshed and ready to take on new endeavors. Are you interested? Do you have questions? Please contact me through my website or through email, and we will schedule a conversation to explore the possibilities. If you enjoyed this episode with Luis, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I would love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find my page at tammygoulerloeb.com/Apple. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next interview on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.